Chapter 1. Even what sounded like a simple robbery made Leslie's stomach turn. He glanced toward his partner, Maybelle Walker, cocked his head, and started his patrol car. "Guess we're heading toward Larry's strip mall." He still called it Larry's because Larry's Firearms used to be the anchor for the strip when it was first built, maybe 40 years ago, until just recently, maybe 5 years ago, when the Z-Mart took over the anchor position. "Shit," he thought, while pulling out of the Dunkin' Donuts lot where he and Maybelle had stopped for coffee. Had it been that long since Larry's Firearms had folded? Maybelle stayed in touch with dispatch using the point. That long since Larry's Firearms had folded? Maybelle stayed in touch with dispatch using the patrol car's radio. Over the unit came Glenda's gravelly voice. "Robbery in process." Glenda was a long-time heavy smoker, and Leslie cringed to hear her voice over the radio. In the day, she had a sweet voice, but time and cigarettes can change that. "Going on right now," Maybelle said. She keyed the mic. "Be there in 3. He noticed the glint of excitement in her eyes. "The perp is waving a baseball bat around." "The perp is waving a baseball bat around," Glenda said over the comms. "Only a baseball bat? No weapon?" Maybelle repeated. "There's always a gun," Leslie said before pointing at the radio. "You know I can hear her." "Sorry, Fuller. I repeat things to set them in my head. I'll stop. I just meant that it appeared that his only weapon was a baseball bat." "We don't know the perpetrator is a he." "Probably is, though. Some hoodlum thinking he can get away with a robbery using a baseball bat." Leslie smiled at her innocence. She smiled back. "I know what goes on in this town." Maybelle was a fairly new recruit. They had only been working together a few weeks. He was still getting to know her. This was the first real crime they'd been called to. At that time of year, a lot of people holed up in their homes. At that time of year, a lot of people holed up in their homes after 9 o'clock. Leslie suspected the majority might even be sleeping. You don't have to be homes after 9 o'clock. Leslie suspected the majority might even be sleeping. "You don't have to stop repeating if it helps you do your job," he said. They were only 3 minutes from the Z-Mart, as Maybelle had told Glenda. "Do your job," he said. They were only 3 minutes from the Z-Mart, as Maybelle had told Glenda. Leslie pulled up to the side of the building and turned off the cruiser. He sat for a moment, not even reaching for the door handle. "Front or back?" May asked, a bit more enthusiastically than he expected. "Front," Leslie said. "Yeah, he's not likely to rush out the front door and run like hell," she said. He heard a bit of sarcasm in her voice and put it off until later, but he'd have to have a talk with her nonetheless. "I'd like to retire," he said, thinking about getting swatted by a baseball bat as the perp tried running out the back. "Wouldn't we all?" "You're much younger. You can run faster." He chuckled, but didn't feel it was funny. He knew what he was doing, avoiding head-on conflict. He did want to retire. They both got out of the car. He waited for Maybelle to reach the corner of the building before reaching inside the cruiser. He chirped the siren a few times to get the person inside to panic and run. They needed to surprise him. That way he'd be less likely to hurt the person working behind the counter. Leslie slunk. Needed to surprise him. That way he'd be less likely to hurt the person working behind the counter. Needed to surprise him. That way he'd be less likely to hurt the person working behind the counter. Leslie needed to surprise him. That way, he'd be less likely to hurt the person working behind the counter. Leslie swung around the back of the cruiser and headed toward the front door. He caught a glimpse of the young man. Long hair, scruffy beard, loose clothing. Probably a meth head looking for cash. Like an idiot, he glanced toward Leslie. Then he threw the bat down and ran for the back door. Drugs could really make you stupid, Leslie thought. He took a few and ran for the back door. Drugs could really make you stupid, Leslie thought. He took a few quick steps toward the front door and rushed inside. He looked at a frightened young girl at the counter and wondered who called the robbery in. She still had her hands up. "You okay?" She nodded her head, yes. "I'll be back." He turned and went out the door again and rushed toward the far end of the strip mall. There were only 3 stores in the strip: the Z-Mart, where Larry's used to be, Sheer Beauty, and Seconds, a used bookstore for mostly mass-market paperbacks. By the time he reached the end of the building, he heard Maybelle yelling into her shoulder radio, "Coming your way!" Leslie hoped he was going in the right direction. Just as he turned the corner at Seconds, the kid ran into him. His reflexes were still quick. Leslie swung his arm around and grabbed the kid's book. Seconds, the kid ran into him. His reflexes were still quick. Leslie swung his arm around and grabbed the kid's bulky shirt up near the neck, jerked him back and tripped him, following him to the ground where he placed a knee on the kid's thigh. "That hurts!" "I didn't hit you with a bat," Leslie said. Maybelle came around the side of the building, pulled out handcuffs and slipped them over the kid's wrists. "You have the right to remain silent." Leslie yanked the kid to his feet and turned him around. "You have the right to remain silent. Leslie yanked the kid to his feet and turned him around as Maybelle read him his rights. "Godfrey? Mr. Fuller?" He knew the kid. Not a druggie. "What the hell do you think you were doing in there?" "I don't know, and I'm sorry, I really am." "Jesus." "You know this goon?" Maybelle asked. "Neighbor at one time. Out in the trailer park, east of town. I know his family. He must be the... At one time. Out in the trailer park, east of town. I know his family. Last. Neighbor at one time. Out in the trailer park, east of town. I know his family. He must be the dumb one." "Hey, you don't need to insult me," Godfrey said. "Look what the hell you did," Leslie said. He turned to Maybelle. "Lock him in the cruiser and babysit him while I check out the scene to see if he did any real damage." As Maybelle pulled him forward, Godfrey looked over his shoulder toward Leslie. "Can't I go? I said I was sorry." Maybelle said, "Come on, genius." Leslie shook his head and walked back into the Maybelle said, "Come on, genius. Leslie shook his head and walked back into the Z-Mart. The girl looked as if she were about to cry. She wrung her hands and paced behind the counter. He talked casually with her for a few minutes. Find out why. She wrung her hands and paced behind the counter. He talked casually with her for a few minutes, first asking how she liked working there, where she went to school. She looked like a high schooler. And did she know Godfrey? Which she didn't. Her name was Liz. Cute kid. And sounded smart. "He scared me." She shook her head. "I'm so glad you got here quickly." "We weren't far." "I'm glad." Leslie laughed and glanced out the door. "He's actually not a bad kid at all." "I'm glad." Leslie laughed and glanced out the door. "He's actually not a bad kid at all, and not a bad-looking kid when he cleans up. Family's had a rough time of it lately, since his dad lost his job." "What are you going to do with him?" "Scare him, I hope." She twisted her face at his response. If he realizes he can't get away with any of this, he'll go out and find a job. He's a healthy kid. This kind of money grab looks easy. He just found out that it isn't. She shook her head again. Apparently her usual response for the evening. I hope you're right. I sure don't want to see him again. So who called this in? She stared at him for a minute. Leslie knew something was going on when she didn't answer right away. He couldn't wait for her to spit it out. So? Who? She turned to look toward the back office. Mickey. A gangly boy about her age opened the door. Turned to look toward the back office. Mickey! A gangly boy about her age opened the door and stepped out a moment later. Leslie figured out what was going on right away. Mickey wasn't supposed to be there. Liz glanced over at Mickey and back at Leslie. He was just getting some soda or something. I saw that kid with the baseball bat and told him to go into the office and call the police. That's all it was. Your family owns the store, don't they? You must be Albert's daughter. Her eyes grew large. I won't tell this time. I do recommend that you close down and go home. Let your dad and mom know what happened, so maybe you don't work alone every night. You won't tell them? Not unless asked directly. Mickey looked relieved, but Liz didn't look so sure. Unless asked directly. Mickey looked relieved, but Liz didn't look so sure. Do as I say, okay? Close the store for the night. You're in no shape to stay open. And go home. Leslie eyed Mickey. You too, son. Yes, sir, Liz said. Mickey nodded. Leslie picked the bat up on his way out. Nothing looked damaged. Said. Mickey nodded. Leslie picked the bat up on his way out. Nothing looked damaged. He peered into the back seat at Godfrey. He threw the bat into the cab. Mabel here treat you well? Bat into the cab. Mabel here treat you well? It's Maybelle, please. I hate the name Mabel. Deputy Walker. Will that work? Either one, she said. Leslie didn't wait for Godfrey to answer him. He closed the back door, then slipped behind the steering wheel, pinning the bat next to the door with his knee, and headed away from the Z-Mart. We taking him in? Not this time. It's a catch and release. He didn't do any damage. Leslie turned and spoke louder. And I know where he lives. It's the other way, Godfrey said. I know. Leslie drove another few minutes until they were maybe 2 miles away from the trailer park where Godfrey lived. He stopped the car and got out. You're leaving me out here? Godfrey whined. Leslie grabbed the bat as he got out of the cruiser. He pulled Godfrey from the back seat and then handed the bat to him. Maybelle had opened the passenger door and stood with one leg in the cruiser and one out, watching what went on. Leslie turned Godfrey around so he could uncuff him. I want you to think about a few things as you walk home. It's only a couple miles. You'll be home well before midnight. I want you to think about what real job you can get that will pay for your cigarettes and beer. Midnight. I want you to think about what real job you can get that will pay for your cigarettes and beer, and maybe a date once you clean the hell up some. There aren't no jobs in town. My daddy always said that if you can't... There aren't no jobs in town. My daddy always said that if you can't find work, you ain't looking. So tomorrow you'll start looking. Got that? I will, Mr. Fuller. If I catch you doing anything stupid like that shit you pulled back there again, I'll put you in jail. We'll prosecute you and you'll go to prison. Godfrey's head started shaking. I won't. Now get home. Leslie got back into the cruiser as Godfrey started walking away. "You let him go," Maybelle said once she sat back down, too. He started walking away. "You let him go," Maybelle said once she sat back down, too. "I did. We have the report. He didn't steal anything. I told you it was catch and release." "What if he does something like this again, thinking he could get away with it again?" "He won't." Leslie smiled at her and looked her in the eye. "These are people, not criminals. Most of them, anyway. You can't treat everyone like a criminal." "Before we went in, you said something." "What did I say?" "That there is always a gun." He pointed at her sidearm. "If you pull that out, even if you don't, and there's a tussle, it could go off and kill someone. The perpetrator could get his hands on it and kill you, or any number of scenarios between. So even if they don't have a gun, once you're involved, there is a gun. Yours. We're taught I don't give a fuck what you're taught.